Welcome to another edition, another episode of Dr. James Beckett Sports Card Insights. I'm here with Eric Norton, who's the voice of Fat Packs. I've listened to it for a long time, not probably all 373 episodes or whatever there are, but I've listened to a lot of them. And the other challenge that I have is I generally listen at least 1.5 times speed and frequently double speed. And Eric is an excellent talker. And I enjoy and I get a lot of comprehension. I learn what's going on. His podcast is always interesting, always entertaining. He's got great guests. But he's hour and a half, 2 hours format, and I'm pretty strictly staying with 15 minutes. So before we get into the substance of that, I want to thank our sponsors, Beckett Media, Beckett, which includes Beckett Grading, it includes the podcast, includes Beckett Authentication, the comic book grading, all the different things that Beckett Media has branched into. Frankly, much of since I've been gone, 14 and a half years, which seems like not that long ago. ComC.com out in Seattle area. Burbank Sports Cards, Burbank, California. Mike's Stadium Sports Cards in Aurora, Colorado. Two excellent but very different card shops. Heritage Auctions, Huggins & Scott Auctions, Tops, Panini, and Upper Deck. So we've got some great sponsors. But Eric, I'm really looking forward to talking to you about Fat Packs.
Thank you.
And hearing your side of the story, you've got actually, you may also have Beckett Media as a sponsor. So, but other than that, you're aware of these other sponsors, and I've met some of your sponsors. Mm-hmm. It's a big world out there. There's plenty of room for a bunch of podcasts that come at things differently, but you feel like you set the standard? I mean, you're certainly the one I've listened to the most.
Thank you. I've been told that. I don't feel that way. With that, however, let me get that autographed. When that started, I reached out to Drew, who the host of that show, and I said, "Hey, I know you're new in the space. Let me give you some advice." I've been told I was the godfather of the genre, and I don't feel that way, but the standard is a high bar. So I think, like you said, there's plenty of room for everybody.
I've done a number of episodes of Rich Klein. And you know Rich, you've had him on, and he's an amazing guy with a great gift of storytelling, and especially trivial stories that no one else knows or remembers. And I've really enjoyed the interaction with him. Used to be with Paul, but now it's just you, mostly.
Mostly, yeah.
Sometimes it seems like you'll have a guest co-host, or you get very conversational with your guests, and so there's usually a back and forth. Right. But do you miss Paul? This is your opportunity to tell Paul that you miss him.
I miss Paul greatly. I don't know what it was. The first time I ever met him,
y'all had camaraderie.
Yeah, there was just an instant rapport with the first time I ever met him, and he was easy to talk to. Paul was he was my card guy. Like if I had a question about a card, Paul knew it, so it was easy to throw to him, and he could give me the background, and I could talk topical stuff.
Was it like play-by-play in color? Like the announcers do in baseball?
Sure, yeah.
Were you the play-by-play and he was the color man?
Yeah, it was very much Pat Summerall.
Rich and I do a little bit.
Exactly. Pat Summerall and John Madden type thing. It was a lot of fun. I miss Paul greatly. Paul's over on the show floor and we sat down together and did a segment. I had to. I miss him a lot.
Is he missing you, or is he having so much fun doing what he's doing?
Oh gosh,
because he has a store and he's breaking, right?
Yeah, he has a store. He's breaking. He has a Facebook group that he runs, selling cards on the auction style thing. Yeah, he's doing great.
So he's totally full.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, good. No, podcast it's not the only thing, but it's an excellent way, I think, to communicate with a broad audience. Yeah. That self-selects and defines if they want to listen.
Right.
And generally, if they're not stumbling on your podcast even though it's entertaining, it's entertaining for people that are interested in this kind of stuff.
Absolutely. The very first podcast I ever listened to was Jay Moore's More Stories. And it has nothing to do with, he was working at a sports station in LA. So it was kind of sports related, but it was just storytelling. Yeah. And I fell in love with podcasting because of that show. And with that being said, it's very listener driven. I can pick up a new podcast and I know within the first 3 minutes whether or not I want to listen to it past that. So, between cadence and, that kind of stuff. So,
do you get a lot of listener feedback or you get a lot of feedback from your sponsors how interactive is it in that regard? Are you just deciding what you want to do on the episodes, or is there enough reader input where you can direct some things?
So, yes and no. There's both. I definitely do get feedback, and most of it's positive. Sure. There are the naysayers, which is fine. But as far as booking the show goes, or planning a show, that's mostly me just kind of feeling what's going on in the hobby and trying to bring that to audio format. And so some of the segments, in the shop, or we'll have a breaker on, is because that's really what's hot right now in the hobby. So that's what we're doing.
And I think that's terrific. But are most of those remote?
No, most of them are phone calls, actually.
No, but that's remote.
Oh, yeah, I got you. Yeah, all right.
You're not across from them.
Right, yeah, most of them are. Which can be challenging because,
yes.
We're sitting across from each other. I can see your face and we can read each other. On a phone, it can be a coin toss sometimes. So it's
you don't know if they're smiling. You don't know if they're in the process of, but, even so, are there some logistical challenges? Because you're in your longer form, you put together multiple interviews in a show, and you have to splice them together at the afterwards when you're dealing with it.
Absolutely have to splice them
together.
Do you
enjoy that part of it?
I do. It's fun.
You don't outsource it, right?
Nope. Do it myself. Because I do enjoy it. The biggest logistical challenge is finding the time. I like to record. I'm a morning person. I like to record in the morning, and 8:30, 9 o'clock is pretty early for people.
For most other people.
Yeah. So at that time, I've been at work by 2.5, 3 hours at the time. So that's the biggest logistical challenge.
But so the call is live, but you basically are putting things together and then releasing it later that day, or what?
So every show comes out on Thursday. So we might speak on Tuesday afternoon, and then that gives me time to edit
put it together,
and put it together, and then by Thursday morning, I have a whole show that I can put out.
And do you, are there any other teasers that you put out? I mean, do you have any little trailers or things like that sometimes they suggest? Or do you just have loyal listeners?
I've started to do some of that. There's I forget, off the top of my head, I forget the name of the software, but it's, you give a little minute snippet or something. It's called Spare Minute. That's what it's called. And give a little minute snippet of what's happening.
Where does it go?
It's basically
cyberspace.
Yes, on cyberspace, and you post it. And
who stumbles into it?
Hopefully your followers or your listeners or people looking for stuff.
And then they can pass it on.
Yeah, exactly.
They could send a link or something.
Exactly.
To give them a glimpse of what's going on.
Exactly.
Instead of the whole thing.
I learned early that, again, social media is just a huge part of podcasting, and you don't want to grow stale, so your social media really has to be on top of it. So I used to do, on Tuesday I would do, on Thursday we're going to have this guest and this guest, and promote who's coming on. So you got to really stay on top of that.
Well, I think I'm making a mistake because I'm not going strong on social media. That's not really, it's some of my generation, but my sense is that, because I don't want to go hard in that direction, going every day with 12 to 15 minutes is a way to straddle that.
That's smart.
Because if I was once a week, people would wonder, is it going to be here next week? But if you're every day or 5 days a week, then they say, okay, well, we can track with it.
Sure.
And so it's not the snippets of social media, but there's some social regularity in the digital world.
So
that's my philosophy.
That's actually really smart. My biggest thing is consistency. My listeners know that there's going to be a new episode every Thursday at 11:30.
Why is it that so many podcasts are not consistent? Because I do think that's one of your strengths. I actually think it's easier to be consistent every day than every week.
Right. Burnout. I think burnout's a big part of it. Discouragement. Like when you put out a new show and you originally you're getting 100 downloads, maybe 200 downloads. That can be, why am I putting this effort into this? So you just being consistent and staying positive and on top of it.
My philosophy on that is that actually, regardless of how many downloads you're getting, are you getting the right people?
Yeah.
And so in your target, what is your target? Is it show owners? I mean, shop owners or serious hobbyists? Because I think I'm probably making a mistake.
Sure.
Having a broader appeal to where there'll be some episodes for brand new collectors and some for absolute veterans.
I think my target audience is that 18 to 35-year-old guy who is either getting into the hobby or has got out and is coming back into the hobby. And the whole reason I started doing the podcast was I was finding stuff. 87 Bo Jackson. I just wanted another 87 Bo Jackson because I had it when I was a kid, right? So finding stuff that I had when I was a kid and buying it again. That's my target audience. That's who really listens to the show. Sometimes they're a little bit older, 42, 43. But they're guys who are involved in the hobby, maybe on a macro level.
Do you is there any way to determine your listener demographics? That's who you're shooting at.
Yeah.
You know that you're connecting with those, or you don't have a bunch of moms that are listening that are trying to figure out what's going on.
I can tell a lot by who's interacting with me.
By the feedback.
Yeah, by the feedback. There are some moms who listen to me, but I can tell a lot by the feedback. That software that I use, it's on SoundCloud. It gives me really good statistics about who's listening, where they're listening from, and that kind of.
What do you mean? What state? What country?
Exactly. State, country, whether it's an RSS feed or is it iTunes or is it whatever. I can tell a lot by who's click and play on
iTunes is my number one.
Yeah.
And I really had a hiccup the first couple of weeks. I wasn't listed. I mean, I wasn't whatever. I wasn't in the iTunes thing. I had submitted, but I didn't. It got hung up in something. So it took a couple weeks to get. And then all of a sudden, then you can see the power of the Apple universe. But you got Stitcher
you got to get on radio.com. Radio.com.
I got an iHeartRadio.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, awesome.
Is that radio?
Yeah, there you go. Right. That's perfect. Yeah,
that's not huge for me.
It'll be all right. It'll pick up.
You're my podcasting guru. I'm following in your big footsteps, but I'm enjoying it still. Sounds like you are too. And like I said, the other thing I did with shorter format is I don't have to worry about show notes too much.
Right. Yeah.
But I'm told that that really matters. Does that mainly matter because is that in the search aspect, or is that in just helping people navigate the fact that they may not have time to do your whole thing?
Both.
What do you see?
Both. SEO is really important, and show notes are a big part of that. So say you want to hear just the part about me talking about SEO. Right. In your show notes, if you were to tell listeners where that was, they could go directly to that, listen to the 30-second clip, and be done with it. And you would still get credit for the download. But SEO and show notes counts a lot. If you're not doing it, I would definitely start.
Well, I've read your show notes, and I do think that's helpful. I'm not as expansive as you are, but it just shows correctly that you care about your listeners.
Yeah,
and I think that's the biggest aspect of success. And you don't have a copyright on it, but I'm hoping to do that too. I mean, I was at one point, I was so many of the things that I'm talking to.
Sure.
From a parent to a collector, dealer, even promoted shows, which I don't want to do that. I mean, I've done that a long time, but, and going to shows and things like that. So it's a lot of fun.
Absolutely.
So if I can communicate that either through myself or through some of the guests I have, I'm so glad we sat down and had a chance to talk about
Me too.
Podcasting. And I'll dial in or whatever again and be on your show and look forward to that at some point because I always enjoy it. But 15-minute format, which we're approaching 15 minutes now. So I want to thank you, Eric, for being here with me. Thanks, listeners, for listening. If you do have a question or a comment, I have an email at Dr. James Beckett with DOCTOR, James Beckett @gmail.com. And that's one way to get me. In fact, that's probably the main way to get me at this point. I'm not giving out my phone number, but hopefully you're getting some enjoyment out of this. And if you've got ideas and feedback, happy to hear them. So again, thanks, Eric. Thanks, everybody. We'll be back tomorrow.